Hello and welcome. The Move the Line presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Ryan Noonan, joined here, as always, by my friends to talk sides and totals and probably some other stuff because it is Super Bowl week. Joining me here, as always, Connor Allen. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, not much. Excited to watch the best game of the year. By far my favorite one to watch. Super pumped for that. It should be a good game. Released a lot of props, a lot of off the wall stuff. I think we'll have some good discourse about the game. Clark and I agree in some areas and disagree in others. So I'm excited to get into it.
Looking dapper here today. Joining us here is Sharp Clark. I love it, man. We got collar on the shirt, got a little suit coat action. We got the hat on, which means we're coming off of probably some good stuff happened in the weeks before. We have a bye week, so we get the week off last week. What's going on, bud?
Not much. Yeah, it's been a really good playoff season for me. Hoping to cap it off with a good Super Bowl, but regardless, I get to go to the game, and I'm a Chiefs fan, so it's going to be a good time no matter what. Obviously, a better time if the Chiefs win, but I'm just happy I'm grateful to be able to go.
Yeah. Excited for you to, have to share some texts and some picks, and we can live vicariously through you for the game. You'll be the one guy out there. Just look for the Pat Mahomes jersey, and you'll know that that's Clark because I'm sure. Well, but there's a lot of suits in the Super Bowl, so it's not necessarily all the fans. The jerseys are going to be way up there. You might not be that far up there, so we might see you.
I might go Jamal Charles because you gotta show I'm a long-term Chiefs fan. I'm not a bandwagon Patrick Mahomes fan, right? Like,
sure,
there's a chance I do that.
Okay, I like it. What were you going to add there, Connor?
No, I was going to say you're right because suites are bought by businesses or even Christian McCaffrey family last week was we can't afford a suite because it's $2 million, something like that. So, I don't know if you guys saw the reviews. The food does look pretty incredible. We're talking about Wagyu hot dogs, even wild stuff. Definitely not worth $2.5 million, but pretty cool.
Yeah, it's the Super Bowl. It's opulence, Vegas Super Bowl. It's I wouldn't expect anything else. You'd shave truffle on your nachos, or I'm sure all sorts of stuff like that. You should put all that, whatever you can put gold on the rim of your, Coors Light or whatever it's happening there. It's Vegas. I'd expect all of that. So this is. Typically tell you we're going to be here every Wednesday, but we're not because this is it. Connor and I will be back with our off-season stuff. Draft stuff comes pretty heavily. Again, subscribe to the YouTube channel here at 4for4 Bets or the podcast feed for Move the Line wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, we probably take a week off, but last year we jumped right into it. So coaching changes, off-season stuff, and again the draft will be very heavy between now and the end of April. So subscribe to wherever you're watching or listening. You can head over to the site 4for4.com and take a look at the extensive work that Connor and Clark have done with some preview articles breaking down this game. And Connor's done this for years and has had some 7-2. Connor picking the winner. Is that correct?
7-2, and I've never felt worse about this year. So
okay, all right. Stamp of approval.
Yeah, no, but I do feel good about my process. That's the point.
Okay. Yeah, process over results, but the results have been good too. But again, regardless, I wouldn't necessarily go there looking for the winner. You might get it, but just again, understanding the analysis and understanding, Connor does a great job, unbiased, of just kind of breaking down when the Chiefs have the ball, when the Niners have the ball, some of the stuff we're going to try to replicate here on the show as well. You also get a betting thoughts from Clark as well in his preview of the game. That is not an unbiased take, I will tell you, because we just told you he's going to be in a Jamal Charles or Patrick Mahomes jersey for the game. And typically, at times it's had Patrick Mahomes hanging up in the, rafters behind him on the show. I'm just kidding. But again, Clark, it was great stuff.
Yeah. I am a fan of the Chiefs, but I don't let it color my analysis. I haven't lost money betting on the Chiefs, right? I mean, I'm actually up betting on the Chiefs, which is nice, but I care about money more than I do the Chiefs.
An important thing to separate there. So yeah, just giving you a hard time. I mean, we already called out your biases, so we know it's there. But again, great content over the site. I'm going to have something for you here in the next 24 hours as well. That has a slant that's near and dear to my heart. It'll be free over on the site as well. So 4for4.com. And you can check out lots of great content. Again, if you want to just ride with us for the last little bit of the season, you want to, get all the bets. Again, still where we at 72, 90 something hours. We have a lot of bets still to be pumped out through our Discord, 4for4.com/plans. You get the betting subscription, get you access to all that we do over there till the end of February. So you can, want to bet MMA, you want to bet some early draft stuff with us, NBA, stuff like that. Really super cheap to get access and get a sense of, what that subscription looks like. And you can join us for next year because that stuff is coming very, very, very soon. Stick around on this channel for Prop Drop. That'll be on Friday afternoon with Connor, myself, and John Hyslop, where we've been all season long. Again, we're going to get to some props today. But you want to have the whole kit and caboodle. I mean, it's going to be some sort of like 45 minutes of uncorrelated parlays, which is, I imagine, what happened. Now, look, that worked very well last week. We hit a couple in the divisional round. We had the Nelson Aguilar waited until the very end of that game to give us under 1.5 catches, 25 plus receiving yards. That paid 38-1. Personally, that made my weekend. That was all I needed. But we went to the well too with Christian McCaffrey. I think it was under 4.5 receptions, 40 plus receiving yards. He got there for us too. So we've had some success with those. And then obviously we know the menu for the Super Bowl is extensive, and we will do our best to try to make a profitable weekend experience for you there. So come back on Friday and join us for the prop drop. All right. Super Bowl 58, Chiefs, Niners. As we record, Niners 2-point favorites in most spots. FanDuel 2.5 at -105. There are a few books, including ESPN Bet. If you happen to have access or can get down there, it's currently at -1.5 at -110. So again, this will probably fluctuate. We're not going to touch 3 again, I don't believe. You guys can tell me if you think I'm wrong. We imagine we probably continue to oscillate between 2.5 and 1.5, but most, again, they're painted at 2. Total is 47.5 across the board as well. Look, I'm just trying to think back of where we were at the start of the season. We did all of our divisional previews. The path is never a straight line. Not super surprising, though, that this is where we are. Like, look ahead market had the Niners favorite in 16 of 17 games. Their win total got out to 11.5. They were one of the clear favorites all summer to come out of the NFC. The great unknown coming into the season revolved around Brock Purdy, both in terms of his health, because the guy was coming off of major elbow surgery, and whether or not the small sample of success that we saw in 2022 would continue. It did. There were some lows, but there were a lot more highs. I think he was able to elevate the Shanahan offense to a new level, which has been really exciting to watch. And the same can be said for the Chiefs. Like, they were massive favorites to come out of the AFC West. They were as short as 3-1 to win the AFC during the preseason. Lose on opening night, and obviously a very public way to the Lions. And then we saw a kind of continued lack of experience in the wide receiver room. It was kind of an issue all season long. Now, that's kind of hard because the Chiefs are graded against other Chiefs teams, and that, fair or unfair, that's kind of where we are in this Mahomes, Andy Reid era. But this offense is still really one of the best in the league. It's really kind of turned it up here as the season's gone along. Rasheed Rice has emerged. Maybe might have the ceiling as other Super Bowl Chiefs teams, but still a really good playoffs. Miami, Buffalo, Baltimore were 3 of the best teams in the league all season long. Definitely 3 of the best in the AFC. And Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs handled the business. So time's a flat circle. Niners, Chiefs. Here we go. Connor, I'll give you the floor first. We'll start with the Niners have the ball. Kick us off with any thoughts you have here.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different angles here that I think are pretty important. So the first one I think is actually one of the most important in the entire game, and I think will actually dictate probably the game, will be the Niners' success running the ball. So, that sounds kind of ridiculous because running is, far less correlation to success than passing. But if we look at this Niners running game here, they have ran the ball into the teeth of the Lions defense last week and into the Packers when both teams were pass funnels. They're much worse against the pass than they are against the run. And they had, reasonable success doing it, but they didn't really scheme their game plan to what we thought the weakness should be. Now we have a chance here for them to just do whatever they do best against this Chiefs running defense that is bottom 10 in basically every run defense metric and bottom or top 5 in basically every pass defense metric. And a couple of key points here too. Specifically, the Niners are extremely good at zone scheme running. The Chiefs have been one of the worst, 29th in stuff rate, 29th in, yards per carry allowed, and a variety of different factors here. So, Now, that doesn't mean that the Chiefs can't stop the Niners running game, but then you add in the factor too that the Niners using 21 and 22 personnel, so using 2 running backs, essentially Kyle Juszczyk, like adding another running back in the field, they've been absolutely crushing. I mean, averaging over 5 yards per carry, and the Chiefs are allowing 5.2 yards per carry in those instances as well. So it's one of those things that the Niners have faced stacked boxes at the highest rate in the league, and they're still the best running team in the league, or top 3 in basically every rushing metric. So like, I think the whole, idea that like the Chiefs can scheme up a way to stop the Niners could be true. I'm not going to say it's not true, but I just think it's significantly easier said than done, given how good the Niners have been against virtually everyone in the running game. And so I think that if the running game is successful, that puts their passing game to be in a much better place to be able to do much more, because you have the Chiefs concerned about the running game, probably loading the box, probably leaving their corners on islands, who have largely done a very good job this year. But again, with the 49ers pre-snap motion, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So I think that I guess the counter real quick is that if the Niners are not able to run the ball, they fall back into a drop back passing game, the Chiefs are probably going to win by a score plus, it's just going to be a complete disaster. And so that's kind of my caveat there, but I think that most outcomes in my mind that I've gone through lead to the Niners running the ball well, which leads to some passing success. Not always and not consistent, but some passing success from time to time. So that's my angle on the Niners offense there, which I'm curious to see how that lines up with Clark.
Yeah, Clark, floor is yours. What do you think there?
I think the smartest thing you said was at the beginning when you said it doesn't matter because you don't run to win. I'm just not that worried about it. The 49ers probably will have some success running the ball, but that's just not how you win at the highest level in the NFL. So if they're going to commit to a run heavy game plan, I like that just fine as a Chiefs bettor and as a Chiefs fan. I think that saying that the Chiefs are bad run defense relative to the pass defense is another way of saying that they have a much better pass defense than they do run defense. And that's where I think, if the successful run game translates into a successful passing game, then yes, everything clicks and everything works. But I think that's the big question, right? Is can Purdy turn that into a successful downfield passing game? I think that Ayuk has been incredible this year, but I think L'Jarius Sneed is the better of that matchup. I think Deebo Samuel is better with the ball in his hands than he is necessarily as a route runner. And so I think, it's going to come down to a lot of whether or not the Chiefs can tackle Deebo before he turns small gains into big gains, whether that's in the passing game or the run game. And then the same thing with McCaffrey. Can they, a successful run of 6 yards? Fine, let's move on to the next down. But if he's turning out 20-yard runs, that's a big problem. So the Chiefs all year have been really, really good at limiting those big plays. And I think they're going to continue to do that here. And that's going to force a lot of third down conversions for Purdy. And that's where I think the Chiefs have a big advantage on defense, is when it's 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. I think that's a big a positive down for the Chiefs defense. And I think the way that Purdy has played in his career against these really good pass defenses has really been drastically different than he's played against teams that have soft pass defenses that he can just tear apart. And the fact that he's only played a handful of games in his 27-game career against these top defenses, I think gives me some Purdy in this game. He was also a 7th round draft pick, and I think that doesn't really matter. Tom Brady was a 6th or 7th round draft pick as well. Some players develop unexpectedly, but it does tell you a little bit about his physical tools. He's 6'1". He has struggled with pressure throughout his career. He just hasn't been pressured that frequently. He is a gunslinger who's not afraid to extend a play or make a play in the face of pressure. And that has worked out poorly for him many times against these good defenses. If the Chiefs can, get a hand on the ball, get a hand on him, I think he's much less resilient to that type of pressure than Patrick Mahomes is. And I think those are the downs that are really going to decide the game for the 49ers offense.
Yeah, and they're so hard to pinpoint, right? But that actually is the Purdy difference when you think about what happens with, like, hey, I can plug in Nick Mullins, I can plug in Jimmy Garoppolo into the Shanahan system, and it's just a system. But Purdy's ability to extend plays, make plays off platform, creating by himself more time has actually led to some of their best explosive plays too. So, we could pick and choose. Are those going to be, those are the coin flip plays of the game. Those end up being the broken plays that create, because he's aggressive, right? He is going to continue to push the ball down the field. He is, he gets this game manager thing because of, like, as if, I don't even think that that's like a bad thing, but whatever. That's the term that's used. As if like he's a dink and dunk quarterback. Like, he's still very aggressive. And yet, yeah, they take advantage of like insane, consistent Shanahan driven yards after the catch. This is also a quarterback that more so than any of these other Shanahan quarterbacks steps in and does take aggressive shots down the field too. So yeah, I agree with you, Clark. Those are coin flip plays in terms of the outcome of this game, but we've seen him throw accurately on the move and be able to do that and do it really well too. So I think that's really important.
We've also seen him throw across his body going the other way and thrown interceptions that way, or plays that should have been intercepted if the defender was paying attention. And I think it's a double-edged sword that has, in his limited sample size, worked out well for him. And I don't think that he'll shrink from the moment. I think he's got the mental game to be, the Super Bowl is not too big for him. I think he's a very, very level-headed guy. But I think it's also not going to phase him away from making these dangerous plays. So, again, the double-edged sword that could end up deciding the game.
1,000%. Yeah, when you look at like turnover-worthy play rate doesn't line up with interception rate, and it doesn't always. And again, the sample's small, right? So that's speaking to your point. I think a little bit of the volatility that's in there that maybe hasn't transferred to turnovers maybe as much as it would probably over the course of a longer sample. So
not just that, but his turnover worthy play rate is way lower than it should be. PFF, I don't like the way they do turnover worthy plays. There's two things in particular that they don't count. One is if your pass gets batted at the line of scrimmage, they don't call that a turnover worthy play, even though it might get popped up in the air for an easy interception. Okay. That happens to Purdy. He's 6'1" and he's had a lot of passes batted at the line of scrimmage. Think about that Ravens game. The second thing is they don't count turnover-worthy plays when the quarterback gets hit as he's throwing, which, again, Purdy did against the Eagles in the playoffs last year. He did it against the Lions last week. He did it against the Ravens in Week 17. Like, he will throw with the pressure hitting him, and that causes turnovers that don't even show up in turnover-worthy play metrics. So I think there's even a chance that he's more turnover-prone than the metrics would suggest.
Fair.
Yeah, it's also, too, to add on there, I think we saw something from Purdy last week, almost in a sense that we hadn't really, we've seen from time to time, but like down 17, backs against the wall, played, largely poorly for the entire first half. Offense couldn't get much going, and then just comes out, makes a couple of key plays, some of which were very lucky. Again, the downfield bounce off the face mask Ayuk. But, he made a couple of other good plays as well. And, he was scrambling, he was moving, he was making plays like a good quarterback should. And so sometimes that gets him in trouble, as you mentioned plenty of times, but sometimes he's able to do things that I think not everyone was giving him credit for, earlier in the season.
Yeah. There's a few things here that I think are going to be super interesting in terms of like pre-snap stuff and knowing the tendencies of these teams, because 49ers love to run. Well, first of all, they love to run bigger formations. A lot of 12 personnel, a lot of 22 personnel. How does that line up with the Chiefs, who love to play dime? They play dime. They have 6 or more DBs on the field at the 3rd highest rate in the league. Obviously, that puts you in a disadvantageous from a running game standpoint, from a size standpoint. Like, how do you kind of like manage that? Obviously, if you're going to be in more of a base formation, they're going to find ways to exploit mismatches because they do love to run a ton of man. They're going to find some ways to get some of the bigger body guys. You're going to get Willie Gay out there more. You're going to get Drew Tranquil out there more. How can they find ways to get them in man coverage or in coverage against, McCaffrey or things like that? Or are you covering Kittle with Willie Gay or something like that? So those things are going to be really interesting. Now, the condensed formation thing is really good too. I want to give a shout out to Ben Solak, did a great job breaking this down. It kind of helps the Chiefs diagnose their blitzes better, because it's obviously just easier from a quarterback standpoint when the field is spread out to understand maybe where they're coming from a little bit. Now, when everything is kind of condensed, it's easier for a defense to hide that. And we know that matters even more because we talked about it last game when we were talking about that Ravens game, especially relevant for KC because they send 2nd and 3rd level rushers at the 4th highest rate in the league. That was something we talked about with like being able to contain Lamar with a little bit of, smaller, faster players that could lead to maybe fewer rushing attempts. They lead the league in unblocked pressure generated by blitzing. So they are going to come, and they're going to come with not necessarily more than 4, but they're going to bring guys that you aren't accounting for and aren't traditional, down linemen. So how does Purdy handle that? Can he diagnose who that guy is? Like that lineman that's dropping off into coverage? Can he get the ball out quickly? Now, again, to Clark's point, he's been really aggressive and very comfortable making plays from like a yards per attempt standpoint, 10.5 yards per attempt versus the blitz this season. So you got to get home still. So how does he handle that? These are going to be smaller, more athletic guys when that happens too. So that's, I think, a huge piece of it. Does Shanahan adjust, spread out a little bit more, knowing that that's what Spags is going to do? Because I think he's going to, by staying condensed, going to invite cleaner pressure a little bit more frequently, which I think is going to be a massive piece of this game.
Yeah.
So,
no, it's also too, like, I know Clark is not a fan of the running game, but I really do think that, like, going back to it like this, if they're spread out a little bit more, like, that's just adds even more, fuel, I think, as well, in a different way to kind of like what, the running game can do. Cause they can run out of so many different formations. And again, it may not matter because running the ball is normally so inefficient. But if we look at their EPA, we look at their success rate, like their EPA running the ball is as good as more than half the league's passing the ball EPA. So it's like, they're not only just like a good running game, they're like the best by a lot and like comparable to some passing games. So, I don't know, just a different way of thinking about it, because normally I would agree with you, and I just think that this is a very unique team.
I'll just say, I hope that they have a league average offensive performance. That'd be fantastic.
All right, Clark, floor is yours. The Chiefs have the ball. What are we looking for here? How's the matchup, and what are you expecting?
Yeah, I think this is not going to be easy for the Chiefs. The 49ers defense is catching a lot of flack, but I think they're a good unit. I think that they do the things that, they're not going to overcommit to blitzing. They're going to play a zone, stay in coverage. And in prior years, when Mahomes has had a game breaker like Tyreek Hill, or Travis Kelce in his prime, I think we can all agree Kelce is still good, but he's definitely not in his prime. I think Mahomes has been able to kind of dissect those defenses better, whereas this year it's been a little bit more of a struggle to find that kind of chemistry with his guys against those looks. So I think it's going to be similar to the second half of the Ravens game and even the first half, where Mahomes is going to drop back. He's going to have some routes to look for downfield. If they're not there, which a lot of times they're not, he's going to have a shorter route, maybe coming over the front, like over the flat, Travis Kelce or another tight end, or maybe the running back, in the other flat. He's always going to have a place to throw the ball, but I think it's going to be short again. I think his ADOT is going to stay low as a way to keep the chains moving and keep the defense kind of pushing back. I don't think this is going to be an explosive play kind of day for the Chiefs, which again, just like I said for the 49ers, is going to put a lot of pressure on those third down conversions. The difference is I think Mahomes is the best quarterback to ever play the game on third down. When they need a first down, he will get it more often than not. He will do whatever it takes to get it. And I think that's going to be kind of where this game comes down to. And I think with that said about both teams, I do like the Chiefs. My model suggests that this should be a true pick 'em at plus 100 either side. And the Chiefs are getting, catching plus 110, plus 115. So I do think there's value there. But I also like the under, because I think, one, both defenses should play well. But two, if the offensives succeed, it's going to be dink and dunk, generating yards on the ground. It's going to be, persistence and third down conversions, and not necessarily automatically turning red zone, opportunities into touchdowns. And I think even if the offenses overall have a pretty decent game, I think due to the number of drives and potential red zone failures, like we could end up with a low scoring game under the total, even if the offenses are good. And then there's the other way you can win it, which is just the, one or two offenses don't show up that well. So I think I have a stronger lean on the under because of that, because I do think the 49ers defense is materially underrated. But in the end, it's Patrick Mahomes. And I do think that he elevates his game in the playoffs. He plays clean. He avoids mistakes. He converts those third downs and fourth downs. And I think that's going to make the difference here.
Connor, Chiefs have the ball. Where are we at?
Yeah, Clark brought up a good point here about the 49ers defense. So, they play zone large majority of the time. They also rush for a large majority of the time, like 80+%. And so against that, I found that was pretty interesting. Mahomes has thrown the second most interceptions of the league at 10 interceptions. Now, that's obviously a super broad range, but you're talking about 72% of his interceptions have come on 52% of his dropbacks against this. So talking about a reasonably higher chunk. And so I think that could be noteworthy here, especially if, if the 49ers are able to make any plays on early downs and get pressure. What's interesting is like Mahomes' whole, I guess, like kind of MO throughout his career is like pressure hasn't really mattered to him all that much. And I think that's kind of reflected in the stats, like 59% completion rate under pressure against zone and 4-man rush. That's still pretty good. It's like top 6 in the league, given those things. So, but it's still a little bit worse. And I think it's kind of like we didn't mention it, but Brock Purdy stats are pretty similar. Like they're still really good under pressure, but they're definitely not as good. And they're like, they're good relative to the rest of the league, but they're significantly worse. And so I think that is noteworthy here. But I expect the Chiefs to have a reasonable amount of success here on the ground, especially on the edges. We have Isaiah Pacheco here. The Chiefs have done this too. So they've been playing some heavier sets and like kind of doing these sweeps. Pacheco's averaging over 5 yards per carry on those, and the 49ers in the playoffs have allowed 7 yards per carry to opposing running games when they run on the outside. So tackled like outside the tackle or outside the guard. So like guard to guard, they've been relatively good. And then outside the tackles, they've been playing way better. I think that's matched up with what the Chiefs do too, specifically because Chiefs look like they're going to be without one of their offensive guards as well. And so I think they're going to see a lot of outside runs against this Niners defense, which could be, very advantageous there. And so I really think this game, or at least on the defensive side here for the Niners and offensive for the Chiefs, is going to come down to like, can the Niners create, have a sack or a turnover or, a couple red zone stops? Because I don't really see them having like consistent success here. I'm also really interested to see if they play a little bit more man here or there just to throw Mahomes off. Again, I'm not like, that's more of just projecting. I don't really have any reason to think that outside of they did it in the second half against the Lions a little bit after they were just like getting shredded. Tried to keep a little bit more tabs on him. But I also wonder what they're going to do with Travis Kelce. I mean, if they don't have a plan for Travis Kelce, it's just going to be Travis Kelce running like 6-yard curls in between the zone and laying down at basically every single play. And so that's another factor too. But overall, I think I agree with Clark in the sense that the under is probably the right move here because we already talked about the Niners running the ball probably well. That leads to a slower pace game. I don't see them, just ripping the ball downfield like we've seen from Purdy and the Niners at some point. Same with the Chiefs. The Chiefs don't really have, that guy anymore. Rashee Rice has been absolutely dominating on yak and screens, and Kelsey's been just like a pretty solid presence in the middle. But, they don't have that downfield Tyreek Hill. They're just have MVS running wind sprints and a couple of, catches here and there. Justin Watson is basically the same thing at this point, unfortunately. My guy, Justin Watson. But yeah, so I have this lean slightly towards the Niners, but again, it's like one of my lowest conviction plays, and it's something that I bet just because of based on, my analysis and having some skin in the game and what I believe. But I think there's some better props to it. One that I thought was interesting that I think we might all be interested in would be over 1.5 interceptions is plus money total in the game. Something that I haven't officially released yet, but I'm definitely considering too. So I don't know, some fun takes there.
Yeah. These are two of the best offensively minded head coaches in the league in terms of scheme and things like that. They all are also especially in bigger moments, a little conservative. And that also is another reason to lean under in the game too. I could see some spots where, especially early, all right, we're going to take the points, roll out the kicker. So that obviously, with the way the Chiefs have been playing these longer sustained drives, eating up more time, fewer explosives, that is death knell to an over bet is just this 8-minute drive that ends with a field goal attempt, even a make or miss. You're holding an over ticket and you are just chasing for the rest of the game. I want to touch on that running game stuff again with the Chiefs, because I think this is going to be extremely interesting. Connor did a great job breaking it down, but some more nuggets there. The Chiefs have shifted a little bit, and I don't know if this has just been matchup specific, if they've just been yeah, we don't want to mess around with having 3 receiver sets with MVS and Justin Watson. Let's go 13. Let's bring out the big dogs, Kelsey, Noah Gray, Blake Bell, and they could be multiple out of it. When they run 13, which they did 7% of the time during the regular season. In the playoffs, it's up to 19%. Now, again, 19% isn't a lot, but that's a massive, massive jump. They still, regardless of whatever their formation is the Chiefs, so their pass rate over expectation is high because they're going to throw. They're running a lot, obviously, out of 13. Now, what happens when this teams typically are in this type of formation? What the Bills did, what the Ravens did, is they drop a 5th lineman down on the defensive line to account for it. This is the Niners refuse to do this. They just don't do it. They've played over 1,100 snaps this season. They have used 5 down linemen on 9 snaps. They play 6 or 7 in the box, mostly 6. They rarely bring a safety down in the box. They again, I bet a lot of tackles, looking at safety rates for, box safety rates matter a lot in terms of those things. They keep their 2 safeties back very, very often. So this is a light box team, and that's been part of the problem and why they've been able to get caught, because it puts a lot of pressure on two of the best linebackers in the game. Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw are fantastic. They can cover, they play the run, all those things, but they are very aggressive. They love to shoot the gap. That was a big part of that, that JMO sweep run early. When you have that big formation, again, that was a 13 like jumbo tight condensed formation that the Lions ran there, play action to the left, basically, fake to Montgomery and a little pitch to JMO. That puts a ton of pressure because you have the ends come in really aggressive too. So Pacheco Longus are very interesting to me. Like both running backs in terms of like non-quarterback MVP options. I know they're not like sexy and like massive double-digit huge numbers and stuff like that, but like there's a path to, I think, both these running backs being massively impactful in this game, to both keys to victory for these teams. So I think it's going to create some opportunities, some massive lanes for Pacheco. We saw this, like he had some big runs against the Jets this season when they played. Now the Jets are really good defense. Where does Robert Saleh come from? He comes with the Niners. Doesn't use 5-man fronts, regardless of what the other team is doing. So I think that's going to create a lot of big plays or opportunities for big plays for Pacheco, who also is fantastic at creating missed tackles. So both these teams are going to have to tackle in space. And I think it's going to be a massive key to the game as well. So yeah, when we had that Niners-Ravens game, I was like, I love that the Ravens won that game. I wanted the Niners less than 3 against any of these AFC teams. And I'm way less confident right now that that's the case. We have it. I was with Clark last week. I didn't want anything to do with the Ravens. I loved Mahomes in that spot. I'm kind of paralyzed. I lean under. I think it's probably my favorite play of the game. Still kind of lean Niners. I haven't gone to the window yet because I'm not afraid of, at this point, nothing's getting away from me. But probably lean Niners. But I don't know, man. It's going to be a terrifying watch. Having again, I know it's like the lazy answer, but giving Mahomes points is it's tough. It's tough. And I was glad that I wasn't on that side. Connor and some other friends were over for that game, and as they were like bemoaning, I didn't want to celebrate, but I was like, I told you guys I didn't want anything to do with that. So I don't know what to do this time. I don't know what to do, guys.
Yeah, it was such a painful.
You know what to do. It's Patrick Mahomes.
I know.
Oh man, I do struggle. I know Clark is going to hate this take, but I do struggle with the fact that this Chiefs offense was like just so average / above, like slightly above average for like 19 weeks, and then they played against 2 overrated / 6 people injured per team defenses, and then played well for a half against the Ravens, and now they're just awesome. They're just like the Chiefs. Like it's just
you're so wrong on so many levels with that whole. I don't even.
Oh man, what do you? Okay, so where am I wrong? Tell me I'm wrong.
All right, they weren't ever average. Like maybe
they definitely were.
You want to you have to look at the things that happen and think about whether they're predictive. Like the amount of key drops that Mahomes has had this year, the drops that turn into interceptions and pick sixes, that changed the outcome of games, plays getting overturned. Like all these things really add up. Like look at Purdy's drop rate versus Mahomes' drop rate. It's literally like the worst in the league versus the best in the league. So that's one thing. They really struggled against the Raiders on Christmas. And I think everyone just panicked and shit the bed because of that. And that was a truly bad performance. Like I'll give you that. But that was one game out of a whole season. I don't think that they were, I grade every snap. They were never below a top 5 offense for me. So that's one.
Really?
2,
never below a top 5 offense? Wow.
Yeah. 2, the Dolphins and the Bills, people are like, oh, well, they were so banged up. Like that doesn't even really count. But like teams get banged up all the time. Like I get it. They weren't at full strength. But like if you watch that game, you can't tell me that Mahomes, speaking of the Bills game in particular, you can't tell me that wasn't one of Mahomes' best games of his entire career. Like he was dialed in. And it wasn't just, this is so easy. It was like, precision passes, decision-making, anticipation, everything. Against Miami, they were playing in such cold weather that Tua was basically just a wet noodle out there, and Mahomes tore it up. Like, again, the Dolphins were banged up, but players get banged up in the NFL. And then the Ravens, they absolutely crushed them in the first half. Should have had 21 points against the best defense we've seen all year. And then in the second half, they didn't play poorly. They took care of the ball. They drained the clock. They moved the ball down the field and pinned them at the 1. And that was a success. Anytime the game was in doubt, they made the play they needed to. When they got the ball back, only up 7, they converted the third down to MVS. It was like they did everything they had to do on offense to win that game, and it wasn't flashy, but it didn't have to be. The Ravens defense was playing incredibly well, and Mahomes took everything they gave him, which wasn't much. So I disagree with everything you just said, and I think the Chiefs offense is just fine.
So a couple counterpoints here. I think we'll just agree to disagree on the Dolphins and Bills because I think that it matters a little bit more than you do. A couple other games here. So Raiders game, you obviously mentioned. Bills game, they could have won. You know, that was the whole Travis Kelce, Tony thing. But again, talking about 24 points against a healthier defense, but whatever, 24 points if they had scored that. They played poorly against the Packers. They played poorly against the Eagles. They played poorly against the Broncos twice. You don't agree with any of that?
No, they didn't play poorly against the Packers. They just had so few opportunities. They played poorly on defense. But offensively, look at the drive.
You know where the Packers head coach came from?
Shanahan.
Yeah. Just a little nugget there, you know, like a little extra tidbit that I was thinking about this week that someone saw, and I was like, man, that kind of makes a little sense. They don't really operate fully the same, but just a couple of schematic similarities.
So, okay, Packers game. They had the ball. We're going to talk about this.
This is great. We need one little final riff here, you know.
They had the ball twice in the first half and had a 13-play, 60-yard field goal drive and a 14-play, 59-yard field goal yard drive. And then it was halftime. And then they had a 9-play, 75-yard touchdown drive, an 11-play, 66-yard touchdown drive, and then they had a punt and an interception, and the game was over. And so, like, yeah, the Packers aren't a great defense, but looking at the final score and saying, well, they only scored 19 points, you have to look at the context. One of the things the Chiefs have done all year is slow the game down and reduce the number of possessions. But what matters is your per possession efficiency. And if you look at drive metrics, the Chiefs actually haven't been that bad, especially when you account for the amount of times that they've lost drives based on drops or things like that are outside their control.
Yeah,
but hey,
I get what you're saying.
Whatever metrics have made the Chiefs underdogs against the Bills and the Ravens and now the 49ers, I will take it. Chiefs win outright, 30-13. It's not even close.
Oh, man. See, you're on a roll right now. Your money is winning, so I mean, I can't even argue against that. Mahomes has been playing awesome, so it's it's been a good run. I'm excited to see the Niners win. My final prediction 24-20. But again, close. Not super convicted, but I do think there are holes on both sides.
I'd be fine with that. My Niners futures would win, and I'd win the under.
Yeah, that'd be good. I feel like the under. The more that we talk, the more that I feel like I should probably be betting more on the under here, to be honest.
Also, today I bet the under in the fourth quarter, under 13.5 points plus 105 at Caesars. The angle on that is kind of what I think Noonan brought it up about how conservative both Andy Reid and Shanahan are with the lead. It really doesn't matter who's winning the game. Like, I think they're going to bleed the shit out of the clock in the fourth quarter, right? And I think that whichever team is losing probably ran into some issues with the matchup that are going to be tough to overcome in game. You know, like if the Chiefs are losing, it's because they haven't been able to overcome the 49ers zone coverage. And I think that's going to prevent big plays in comeback mode. And on the other side, if the 49ers are losing, I don't like a one-dimensional Niners offense with Purdy. So this is a sort of two-sided. I don't know who's going to be winning heading into the fourth quarter, but either one, I like the fourth quarter under.
I think Barry Horse has played Chiefs second half unders when they're winning, like, I don't even know, like every single game, and they just win like every single time. Like, it's literally like, because their defense in the second half has just been unbelievably good. Like, teams can't move the ball at all. The Chiefs get ahead, they drain the clock, like nothing, like these teams can't move the ball at all. Now, I don't know. I mean, maybe I think that might be a super sharp angle there. I don't even know if what the second half under is in general, but especially if the Chiefs are leading, that could be something to look out for live too.
Yeah, although if I remember right, they opened up the second half against the Ravens with like a deep shot that didn't connect, which I thought was, and so, you look at the numbers and you're like, well, they didn't do anything in the second half. They're conservative, but it wasn't necessarily hyper conservative the whole time. It's just they didn't connect on that. But
even that does, to your point, that does just enough, especially if your intention is to melt the clock in the second half. Not melt the clock, because you get to play football. You got to you're trying to make winning plays and explosive stills. But it's still, if you want to come out, but you want to come out and at least stretch them, at least tell them that, hey, you need to still cover, and we're going to threaten deep down the field just to kind of soften it up and know that we're just going to continue to jab you underneath. Pacheco, Kelsey in space, all those things. Like even the incompletion obviously doesn't have the EPA that it would if it being completed. I still think that there's a win by just even making that effort deep down the field. So yeah, that's part of it too. So yeah, there's definitely going to be it's the Super Bowl. There's going to be live lines anyway, and I think that these are some really good angles because I think that makes sense too. The part too is like strength on strength when the Niners have the ball, because this Chiefs defense is, I mean, it's the best of the Andy Reid era. They've been doing it without turning teams over. Like when you look at like just yards per drive, points per drive, the drive efficiency metrics that Clark's talking about. This is a team that is just lining up and beating people, not resting on high EPA due to turnovers or anything like that. They are just, we're going to play a lot of man too. And we're just going to act like we're going to beat you playing man. That's hard to do. So I'm very interested to see in terms of like positional groups, like I talked about. Like I think that is going to be very, very interesting to watch in terms of like number of DBs on the field and some of that stuff. And allows, again, that's where the Niners have an advantage in terms of their ability to be multiple out of those formations, because use check you can do more stuff with. You can do more stuff too with kid. Like those types of things are really, really interesting. So yeah, it's I lean under. I would probably say 23-29ers. I have not bet that. I have not bet a side on this game yet. But again, part of it is like what Connor was saying. I felt really strong about that take when it happened. The Ravens knocked off the Niners. I really wanted the opportunity to go back to the well in the Niners to win it because I thought front to back they're the best team in the league. We have it, and I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment on the Mahomes lore and magic, which I believe and buy into. He is unbelievable. He elevates. He does things that aren't captured in the numbers, and the numbers are fantastic.
It's not the moment when it's 6 years.
I agree.
That's fair.
And look, dude, part of my thing. We talked about it the other day. Like I'm the biggest Tom Brady stan that there is. I named my son after the man. Right, he sits right here over my shoulder, but I still I'm not an anti-Mahomes because I want Brady to hold on to the GOAT title. Now, Brady beat Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Mahomes will never be able to beat Brady in the Super Bowl, but like I still want to see greatness be great. So like I am not anti-Mahomes because there's some sort of like Brady Mahomes thing. I want to see great happen. Mahomes is great. But I think this Niners team is great too. And what I talked about is like, I want to see too. I don't love the Shanahan narrative, like that he can't get over the hump in the big games. He obviously was not the head coach, but the offensive coordinator when their balls went into their stomach when the Falcons were up 28-3 against the Patriots. There's definitely some Shanahan ties to that. His hands have that on it. There's been some disappointment in the past years with some really good Niners teams not being able to get over the hump. For his sake, I also want him to be able to have one of these moments too. So that's also part of it is that, I think this is an all-time coach in terms of his brain and how he's elevated in elevated football game that I love to watch. And I would love to see him be able to, hoist the Super Bowl title as well. And you never know how many times he's going to get back there. I believe Andy Reid, if he doesn't hang it up, probably gets back again with Patrick Mahomes. So who knows what happens to the Niners post Purdy and what happens salary cap wise.
Yeah, this is the best 49ers squad that Shanahan's had and the best quarterback that Shanahan's had. So I think that, it's kind of now or never.
Yeah.
How
about some props or whatever else you guys want to talk about here before we wrap?
Yeah, no, we can go into props. I was gonna piss Clark off a little bit more with another Super Bowl comparison with the Chiefs, but
let's do it. We got time.
Go for it.
All right. So initially I had this typed up and I deleted it in my article because I thought that the comparisons were too loose and that I was gonna get too much shit for it. So because when I'm typing this up, I'm like, man, what team rushed for, played a lot of zone, got pressure on Mahomes, and they absolutely shelled the Chiefs. The Bucks against the Chiefs in the game. Then I'm like thinking back, I'm like, well, Mahomes got hurt in the first playoff game, so we couldn't move. And their running game was like non-existent. So like there's a lot of differences.
So much money in that game.
Oh God.
They also lost Eric Fisher. Like they were
but they had prime Tyreek and prime Kelsey. Like, I mean, this was like the nuts, like pass catcher, but I don't know. It was a complete disaster.
They had no offensive line. They had 3 starting offensive linemen after that game. And not just that, but like one of the things that gets misrepresented about that game is Mahomes played a hell of a game, in my opinion. Like early on, there were some passes that were dropped by receivers that just killed drives. That was the first thing. And then as the game got stretched on and on, he was getting insta-pressured on every drop back, and he was running around and still making plays happen. And his receivers kept dropping them. And it was like he did everything he possibly could to win that game. And I just think the narrative coming out of Brady beat Mahomes is so bullshit because the Bucks defense
They ran the
beat
ball.
Mahomes. The Bucks defense beat Mahomes. Brady did jack shit in that game. He had like 3 short fields that he turned into touchdowns. That was the only touchdown drives in the game. The Bucks defense did the job. The Chiefs had no offensive line. The Chiefs receivers sucked that game. I'm not worried. Also, Mahomes has improved as a player since then. Basically, since his loss to the Bengals the following year or I guess it was 2 years later in the AFC Championship game, the overtime game, that was his worst playoff game in my opinion. Like legitimately, Mahomes played poorly, not his receivers. And it's like he went home that day and just decided like he's never going to lose another playoff game. And his mindset has like shifted. So I think, we'll see, but I just don't think that the 2020 Bucks Super Bowl has anything to do with this one.
Yeah, no, yeah. That's why I deleted it. That's why I was like, oh, maybe I'll get him a little riled up because I was like, more like, it's kind of loose. I'm like, there's the Chiefs are just like a way more robust running game. Like, they have a better offensive line, even with Joe Tunia. Like,
also legit, someone made that comparison last year to me on Twitter and said this Eagles team is just like the Bucks team, and I laughed at him before the game, and then sure enough, Chiefs put up 38.
Yeah, no, that's what I like. I felt really good about the Chiefs last year. I was like, oh man, this Eagles team defense is the biggest bunch of frauds I've ever seen in my life. Like they're so average, it hurts against anyone good. And this year, I just don't really have that much conviction.
Yeah, the Niners are good. Yeah.
Goat didn't do anything in that game except win the Super Bowl MVP, Clark. So careful.
Did he win Super Bowl MVP? He did, right? Yeah,
he did. Yeah, that was my hedge. With my hedge, it wasn't nearly enough to cover pre-game or live in-game betting because it was just like, oh, now we got to live bet the Chiefs again. And it was like another Bucks touchdown. I was like, oh, we got to live bet the Chiefs again. And it's like, oh, that was an expensive day. So
yeah, that sucked.
I'm bitter because I played the team total under on the Bucks and like my handicap was totally right on, but just too many possessions and too many short fields.
Yeah, didn't matter. Like I said, we're going to do a lot of the heavy lifting in the prop section on Friday's show. So again, subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. We appreciate it. We can talk a few here, whatever you want to do. I mean, I don't want to limit the prop for, silo props because, everything is just so convoluted. Like do whatever you want, talk about whatever you want. I know we push some plays out, Connor. I don't know if, some stuff that you have that's still live, Clark, whatever you have too. Most of my stuff I've still been holding on to. As long as, people that I see, trying to put it out there, I'm just going to hold on to it. But hey, whatever. At this point, like we're 12 days in. These prop markets were like, boom, Monday morning after the conference championship games, like full. So there was no waiting, no tiptoeing in. That's on me. So Connor, what do you got?
Well, the sad part was that all the regular prop lines opened up, and I was like, man, these are all like pretty efficient for the most part. So yeah, I mean, there's obviously a couple ones here. I think I've played 2 regular prop lines out of like the 8 or whatever that I've released. I've played 4 special teams props. I mean, it's getting a little wild in these streets, but I think there's an edge in some of those. So it's kind of fun. So I think a fun one here, like I don't know, kind of unique one, I think is the Chiefs to have more punt return yards than the Niners, or Richie James more return yards or longest return than Ray McCloud. There's a couple of different iterations across a couple of different books. But basically the Niners haven't, like Ray McCloud has not returned a single punt. Like he has just fair caught or left every single punt in the playoffs so far. Even after it was like their bye or something like that. It was the last 9 games. He only returned 9 total punts, like scaled it way back. He was returning like 2 a game in the first 6 games of the season. Then they scaled it way back. And I think that has to do more with like how conservative they are on like just making sure their offense has every possession, not really concerned about like squeezing the juice out of return yards. So whereas the Chiefs they let Richie James cook, man. I mean, like the whole Tony stuff is kind of overblown. I don't think he's going to play, but Richie James has returned a punt in almost every game that he's played in basically. So it's been pretty solid. So I think that he'll, again, like I think legit 1 yard could win like a prop for Richie James over Ray McCloud. So I don't know. I think it's a kind of a fun angle that's not like fully baked into the market yet.
Yeah, Travis, one of our subscribers in our Discord, I think touched on some of that. And I thought it was a good point. Like, these normal basic prop markets, the ones that we get week in and week out, are as efficient as ever. And definitely now that they've been, matured over the course of a week plus. But some of these other ones that are like Connor's point, like they're derivatives, definitely not unique like angles, but they're just harder for books to properly price or account for if you're doing some work and some research. So these are some stuff that like, yeah, we're not talking about Gatorade color. We're not talking about heads or tails. We're not talking about anything like that. We're talking about like actual game level stuff like that. And I think that's really good research by Connor there. Clark, what do you got?
I like, sack props that are, under sacks on Mahomes, sacks taken, whatever. I butchered the phrasing. The problem is they've been steamed up. Like I hit them all at open and now they're like really, really steamed. So I can't even recommend at current prices. But I think at the same token, interception props haven't quite been steamed up as much. So there's different ways to play it. There's Purdy throws an interception. You can get for like -115 FanDuel. There's Mahomes doesn't throw an interception. You can get -115 at FanDuel as well. Also at DK. And then there's another way you can play it is Purdy throws more interceptions than Mahomes. Basically just a two-way handicap of Mahomes is turned into a game manager, ironically, because of what people say about Purdy. But Mahomes does not make mistakes, especially in the playoffs. He avoids negative plays. He hasn't had a single turnover-worthy play this playoff run, even against the Ravens. He is very, very good at taking what the defense gives and not putting the ball in harm's way. And I think Purdy is much more quietly a gunslinger than people recognize, and his splits against good defenses are pretty significant. So he puts the ball in danger much more against good defenses. And I think, kind of going with my handicap of the Chiefs having success here, I think that he could be in a game script where he has to pass the ball a lot. So I like Purdy, yes, interception, Mahomes, no interception, or Purdy, more interceptions than Mahomes.
There's some good prices on Purdy, like 1.5 too. I think it was like +400, +500. I mean,
yeah, I think 4 to 1 or better on Purdy. 2 or more interceptions is good. Because he does. I mean, he had 4 against Baltimore, right? And none of them were fluky. Like the first one was just a bad throw, didn't see the defender. Second one was a tipped pass up in the air and then intercepted. Third was he was throwing across his body after escaping pressure, and it got tipped by the defender on the guy and then intercepted. And the fourth was getting hit as he threw, interception. Like these are things that happen to Purdy. It's not a shocker that he would, have multiple turnovers, and he's not going to be afraid of he's not going to shrink in the moment and play, Mr. Game Manager. It's just not how he views himself. When he sees the defense react, he reads the safety and he fires the pass. Like that's what he does. That's why he's so good in Shanahan's offense, point and shoot. But I do think that it opens himself up to some mistakes.
How do we manage on a week-to-week basis to talk about 6 games in about 55 to 60 minutes?
Well, Connor doesn't talk shit about the best player in the league.
That's why I talk. There was like a 20-minute. If we were doing still timestamps, it's like 20 minutes. Connor talking shit to Clark about Mahomes. That's literally what that is.
One I gave out to subscribers yesterday. It's still plus money. It's moved a little bit, but it was. This is Super Bowl. This is on DraftKings specifically. Direction of McCaffrey's first rush. Left is plus money still. I played plus 135 to the left. The Niners lead the league in rushing attempts to the left side of the field. The handicap is not super complicated. It's Trent Williams. A run by Trent Williams. Like I don't have more to say other than like they lead the league in doing that, and Trent Williams is over there. So a couple other pieces of it that I think are interesting. So like CMC's first rushing attempt is lined 3.5. Under is juiced to -125. You can do left 4 or fewer at +275, which I think is definitely a better way to play on it, which again, the books are telling you under 3.5. If you think he's going to have like a splash play, left 5 to 9, they give you the bands. 5 to 9 is 8 to 1, and 10 plus is 9 to 1. So again, just we're taking out, middle and the right side of the field, first rush to the left. Again, they lead the league. There are lots of different ways to play it, but I would expect. And again, that's when you get to cash right away and you get to enjoy the rest of the game. Like it's almost like the national anthem of the coin toss, but in the game. You don't have to sweat that one very long.
Have you been able to look at what the rate was without Trent Williams or without him for like a couple of games? Because there are a couple of games without him, and I'm assuming he's the reason why they ran left. But I'd be curious.
It's a really good question. I did not. Yeah.
Anecdotally, like don't quote me on this, but I feel like I remember not changing anything and being surprised by it. Like
Very possible.
I feel like it's like why am I left with Trent out? It may have just been anecdote, like they have bad runs that really stuck out. Shanahan's pretty stubborn in his play calling. Like
He is.
he's
Very.
he's not one to be like, let's adjust.
This playoffs
No.
proved that more than anything. I feel like that was, I mean, crazy. Almost cost them twice.
One other one that I put out before we go, just get your guys' thoughts on this one, which is, probably a little bit more. I want to do a little bit more work on it, but I saw it today and I thought it was interesting. Let me down the wormhole to at least take a look. Now, league average time of possession per drive is 2 minutes and 43 seconds. No team is, is close to 3. Both San Francisco and Kansas City, less than 3 on the season. We've seen this historical trend outside of last year where we had both teams scored in the first quarter. We've seen some slower starts in Super Bowls historically. Last year, you had 5 of the first 6 drives have a time of possession. 5 of the first 6 drives, the time of possession was under 3 minutes. On DraftKings, you can get time of first possession under 3 minutes and 15 seconds at -110. So, I haven't looked at historical rates. I don't even know how normal, what that's probably really noisy.
Is that like what,
anyway.
1 first down, 1.5, 2 first downs? Probably.
No, you can get a first down and still come under, depending on if you're, passing, how early in the sets you get a first down, and that's, what are you doing after in terms of, passes incomplete, things like that. So,
interesting.
Like I said, last year's Super Bowl, 5 of the first 6 drives, even with completions, even with first downs, went under this number. So, something I want to do a little bit more research between now and game time. So that was an interesting one that I thought, again, something we don't typically get, but reasons to do a little bit more homework in terms of those things. But yeah, league average is 243.
Makes me kind of interested in the the under first score under 6.5 minutes or whatever they usually line that at. It's like, is there going to be a score in the first 2 drives?
Yeah. That's why the menu is fantastic. It's the Super Bowl, so
it's fun. It's fun to analyze.
All right, I think that wraps us up for here. Again, reminder: Friday prop show. But anything in closing here? Connor, I'll let you go first. You got anything for the people?
Yeah, I mean, so as many of you know, Clark is taking step away / towards professional betting, and just wanted to give him a massive shout out. Has done an awesome job all year. It's been great working with him. Always consistently brings opinions that are different than mine and Noonan's, and I really appreciate that because it keeps us both in check. And oftentimes he's been way more right than wrong, I think. And so it's awesome. And so there's always these times where I think, I'm like, what would Clark think? So I'm looking to stay forward to staying in touch next year, and bouncing my opinions off yours, because I'm sure I'll get different ones.
Yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a good year. I appreciate you guys having me on, and I've had a lot of fun breaking down the games with you guys. So I much appreciate you guys. Yeah,
I think that, first of all, the guy goes, head first into the most efficient market in sports betting, and has been profitable. Whatever the trolls want to say, I think it's tracked, it's public. Dude's been profitable for 2 years with us at 4 for 4. Is fantastic. Again, you're really missing the forest through the trees if you still can't. You get hung up in wins and losses on a week-to-week basis, and don't think that you can learn and become a smarter ball knower by listening or reading Clark. I think that happened for me. I think Connor feels the same. I think we both felt that we were pretty strong ball knowers before joining forces with Clark. But I feel like, I'm going to miss talking to him weekly here in this spot. Still plan on talking to him weekly and bothering him, even though he's not going to be joining us here. Been a massive addition and value add to our subscribers at 4 for 4, especially in the Discord. And I think you'll still maybe see his face poking around in there. Again, you might not get to some of those Sunday night, Monday openers and stuff like that from Clark. But again, he'll still be able to be around and won't be leaving us. But again, I want to say from the team, thank you, and we've appreciated it, and it's been a fantastic journey, and wish you the best of luck moving forward. And you're gonna keep killing it. I know you will. He's frozen. It's the way to go out.
And he froze. Look at this. This is how. This is how.
He's back. He's back.
Oh, okay.
I said I appreciate you guys. That was what I was trying to say.
It's resemblant to the show. We've battled through technology issues from mine, Noonan. I think it's finally Clark's turn to have a turn some technology issues. So no better time than now.
Oh yeah. So we appreciate you in the chat too. Make sure you subscribe or hit us with a thumbs up, comments, all those things before you leave. And again, come back on Friday for the prop show. And again, the off season's coming, but the off season doesn't really exist for us. There's still football news. There's football. There are bets to be made. The draft market is definitely one of our favorites to attack. Hopefully it is more robust and lucrative than last year, which last year they were a little slow to play. But again, FanDuel's already got some stuff out right now. So I'm encouraged that maybe we have some more stuff out. Again, maybe having less ambiguity at the top of the draft is maybe going to help encourage them to be a little bit more aggressive sooner than later. So, but that wraps us up for now. Again, we appreciate hanging out with us. Subscribe to 4for4 Bets on the YouTube channel and come back and see us on Friday. So for Connor, Everett Clark for the last time, I'm Ryan with CL. Next time. Thanks, everybody.